Way back, I think it's like 6 or 8 months, something like that, you decided you were going to have a podcast. I'm curious what happened before that. Had people been telling you to do this? Have you been thinking about doing this? Or did you just think about it one day and literally start it the next day?
Neither of those. So the way it started, Chris, my co-host, runs a very popular founder community here in Colorado. It's called Denver Founders. 12,000 members. Like, it has a great following. And Chris and I have been good friends in the entrepreneurial community for quite some time. He was actually one of the original folks that started Denver Startup Week. So just really well dialed in. I'm dialed in, but not as well as him. And I was at one of his events, and I've always had this itch to, like, my craft is entrepreneurship. I don't have hobbies. I don't do I don't play tennis. I don't play golf. It's all entrepreneurship. It's what I spend my spare time in. And so I was talking to Chris about this, and I said, eventually I want to write a book about how to be an entrepreneur, about how, and cover all of the crazy things that we have to cover as entrepreneurs that hit us for the first time. So that it's a reference manual. So you flip to a book, like, what do I do how do I build the mission statement? Like, you flip to the chapter. Instead of writing 10 books, you just flip to here's the mental model, here's the generic things, and here's a bunch of other books that you can go read. But I don't want to write a book. So I said, how about we do a podcast that's kind of a reference manual for founders? And he was in before I finished the sentence. He was like, I'm in, let's do it. So that's really how the podcast started. Didn't have a name, we just kind of had this mission to just help founders. Maybe 3 weeks later, we filmed our first episode on building a noble cause.
Okay. So you weren't one of the people that were planning on doing this, wanting to do this, or were told to do this for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then you started. So I'm curious, what is different about that? Because I've got a listener, at least one person right now, who does not have a podcast. They've probably been thinking of having the podcast for a year, 2 or 3 or 4 years. They've probably been told by their friends, their family, you should do a podcast, you'd be so good. But they did it the slow way. They still haven't done it. They're still kind of learning. So what's the difference between you, who had it launched in 3 weeks, versus some of the folks that take a year or 2 or 3?
Delusion.
Okay, delusion.
Delusion that it was easy, right?
Yeah.
It's the entrepreneurial gene, right? That I was born with. It's ready, fire, aim, and that's kind of how entrepreneurs operate. A lot of them, not all of them. So Chris and I decided we want to do it, and we didn't know what we were getting into, so therefore probably was easier for us to start than if you're really contemplating it and planning it and thinking it out and strategizing it and how we're going to build it. We didn't care about any of that. We didn't care about driving leads to a top of funnel. We didn't care about really building an audience yet. We just wanted to produce some great content and serve entrepreneurs. So it was kind of easier to start from that perspective. But at the same time, we didn't know what we didn't know, and it made it easier.
Yeah. So what do you think you could share about that process, as in terms of things that you learned the quick way?
Yeah, I think that this goes for podcasting. I think general entrepreneurial advice: start. If you're not embarrassed by your first episode, you waited too long. Like, just go, start, have some conversations, bring your friends and family on if you're looking for guests, and just figure it out as you're going. Nobody's going to watch your first 10 episodes anyway. So I think what I confirmed was that starting is the hardest part, and then you just get into a rhythm and you start doing it, and know that you're going to change how long the podcasts are, the script, how you do it, who's going to be on. Those things are going to change and constantly iterate. You're going to constantly iterate on. So my first piece of advice is just go. Just get out and do it, and then figure it out.